Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Whelan, the host of the WB Download, and I want to invite you and welcome you to our podcast. My brother and I own and operate Whelan Builders. It's a custom home building company here in Southwest Ohio. The WB Download mostly focuses on interviewing folks associated with custom building. We stray now and then to interview people who I think are interesting and to break up the monotony of the same old podcast. I also like to highlight things that are going on in my everyday life along with our businesses. I started this podcast to help people understand the custom builder world, but to also give people a chance to hear what others have to say and highlight their expertise and experiences in life. We drop on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month with a new topic and or guest each time. I hope you join us here on the WB Download and enjoy listening and hearing stories of people in and out of the custom builder world. Welcome to the WB Download. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Welcome to the WB Download. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Absolutely, the holidays are upon us. I hope everybody is settled in with that because, it's something that comes around every year. And I usually make fun of everybody because in their work schedules, they're like, well, we got Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I'm like, what did you think was going to happen? And then lo and behold, it shows up and I'm going, oh man, we got Thanksgiving. So, but anyway, I'm looking forward to the holidays. I'm looking forward to hanging time with my family. And, we're trying to make a list. Me and Raina were trying to make a list the other day. Christmas comes and goes so fast that we're trying to make a list of things that we want to do to make it seem more Christmassy. So we started listening to Christmas music about 2 weeks ago. I walked into the barn the other night and they're in there working. Cody and Raina are, and they've got Christmas music on the big speaker. And I was like, I feel like I'm doing a good job as a dad. I'm really proud right now. Other people have rules against that. I think that's wrong. Listen to it whenever you want. I hope you guys enjoyed the show with my good friend Don Weiler up there in Bloomington, Indiana. I know I did. And I know the guys in our weekly football rant on our text message were making comments about it. Because they were jealous, the guys from Iowa and Golden, Colorado. I'm not going to mention any names, Dan, guys. So I was excited to be able to talk with Don about it. Right now, man, we're busy. We're so busy. It's stringing me out, and I think that we're all a little bit stressed out. But we're finishing up 4 houses currently. 3 because we know one will never be finished. One will never close. And I've got so much to say about that, but whatever. And we started a new one yesterday, and these people are just so great, so awesome. It's textbook. I mean, they've just done such an awesome job of making their selections, keeping us on track. And we're doing the same with them. And now we're going over there to Madeira, and we're gonna dig this basement, and we're gonna rock and roll. So it's crazy to open up a hole like this on Thanksgiving week, but it's so much dirt, so much trucking, so much excavation that we feel like we're going to get it ready for the following week for footers and walls. But nonetheless, we're still excited. So we've got a couple of big contracts sitting in front of us right now, and we're working through some details on them and hope to have those signed here in the next week or two. And Homerama is one of them. And so everybody makes a big deal out of Homerama. I know we do because it's a family tradition for us through many, many years. But that's the one that I told you I'd keep you informed on throughout the years. So we have just working on that contract and getting it going. And so we've had we've had a good run of bad weather. And this rain that's been here is about 3 months too late, and it's driving us all crazy. Luckily, Clint got all the crops in. He finished up the corn about a week ago, and he was grateful for that because, his fields are rough out there. But I talked to another buddy of mine, Michael Majors, and he said they still have 3,000 to 4,000 acres left to go. And man, I tell you what, those guys are farming all year long, which sounds crazy to say, but it's true. The other thing I wanted to mention is Alicia Beaver here in our office is celebrating her 2-year anniversary on Thanksgiving Day. And man, I'll tell you, it's hard to find someone who can keep up the pace and have the same drive as me. But man, she's right there. She kills it every single day. A lot of days I feel like I'm a step behind her, and I'm grateful. We're all grateful to have her here, keeping us in line. And Alicia, thank you. I know you're probably not listening to this, but you could probably hear me down the hallway. But thank you for all your hard work. And thanks for being here, and thanks for caring. And I think she's a driver, man. I mean, because I think that people see how hard she works, and it just it leads off and leads off and leads off to other people, and keeps everybody going. So it's awesome. Thank you. Happy anniversary. So the other thing that nobody knows about Alicia is her name is the single hardest name in the English language to pronounce. That we've noticed through the years. That's something I've noticed about her in the last 2 years. It's Alicia. Wow, man, that's hard. And it's been a rough couple months around here for employees and subcontractors, man. It's the part I hate about life in general is that people suck, and when they suck, they blame everyone else except for themselves. So the lesson for today is take responsibility for yourself. You can't suck the dirt off the barn floor 7 days a week. Well, maybe most of these guys 3.5, and then blame me when it's time to get rid of you. You need to take responsibility. But Pastor Ben's sermon last week was about opening doors when doors shut and opening new doors. And I look at this as it's got to be an opportunity to do better, because there's only been a couple times I've seen people go and I'm like, man, that really hurts. I'm upset and disappointed about it. A lot of the other times I'm like, man, it's here. It's time to go. Let's move forward. Forward, which means improvement, which means better, which means more awesomeness. And we've done that quite a bit here in the last couple of months, and we're excited about what's coming with us moving forward. So, hey, I wanted to mention also next month, our first guest of the month will be my good friend, Mike O'Rourke. And he owns a company called O'Rourke Wrecking. And this is a great big old company. They're a huge demolition company. They're based out of Southwest Ohio, and he happens to be one of the greatest guys ever. So I'm fired up for this one, and with any luck, his bride Michelle will come along with us, and we'll get to interview both of them. Man, this is a really big deal because I've always looked up to him, and we get to do some things together a couple times a year, working together, and every time we do, I take pictures and send it to him, and I'm like, man, our parents are proud of us being able to work together. So it's going to be fun to listen to what they have to say. So today, the topics for the show today, you know what? I forgot what to mention. We went down to the North American International Livestock Exposition a couple weeks ago down in Louisville, and saw one of the biggest livestock shows around. I mean, it's amazing how big this thing is. Got to see my old boss, Jared Payne, down there and catch up with him, which has been really fun. And then was really fun talking to him. But then I get to see a bunch of other people, and we get to see some really some of the greatest cattle that are out there on the show circuit. We got to see them and catch up with a lot of different friends. So that was big for the kids to see, and it's just nice to take a day and go down there and spend time together as a family, walking around doing those things. But anyway, so we're getting fired up on our cattle side of it. We're getting fired up to go to some what they call jackpot shows, which are shows just on the weekend. We can load up the trailer on a Friday, go up there Saturday and Sunday and show, and come home Sunday. And so we're looking forward to doing that kind of stuff here in the next couple weeks, couple months, and see how the kids take to it. But they've been working hard, and I think that hard work's going to pay off for them. So, hey, today's topic for the show is just me talking about some things. What's different from when I first got started to now? Alicia makes fun of me all the time because I'm always saying I've been doing this for 30 years. It's been 28, I think, but 30 years. I've been doing it my whole life, which is 51 years. But what's different from my dad's time to what we do today? And I got a kick out of this because I was driving down the road. I become the token old guy a lot of times in some of these meetings and different times, and I start saying, "Here's the way we used to do it." And I listened to my dad do this for years. I listened to a lot of guys in the Home Builders Association do this for years, and now here I am doing things I swore I would never do. So difference over the years. Just in general, talking about labor, I think back in the day, what would happen a lot is the owners of the trades were actually on the job sites working. So Tim Brennan was the electrician on the job. Steve Mavis was the plumber on the job. The heating and air conditioning guys, those guys were all there. They were on a job. Not that makes a big difference today, but it's just not something you see as much of on the job today. So that's probably a really big difference. Now we have subcontractors to the subcontractor to the subcontractor. Guys don't want to work anymore. They look at builders and they go, that's what they do. So they just go hire people to go do their work for them, and then they pretend to manage them. And which is fine, I mean, if it's good quality work and they're doing a great job, and they are actually managing them, hey, let's all work together, let's move forward, but don't pretend like you're managing them. And I'm not going to turn this into a rant, but the difference again today also is the Hispanic labor, the Ukrainian labor, the Amish labor, the difference in ethnicities that are working out on the job. I think that's probably changed a lot since when I first got here, and specifically from when I was a little kid. I just don't remember that much difference in language barriers on the job when we're out there. So that's a big thing. Communication tools are huge, I mean, and this is just even different from when I got started. I got here, I graduated college in 1997 and came home and went to work, and my kids get a kick out of it because they want a cell phone. And we made the rule that you can't get a cell phone until you're 12. And they don't believe me that I didn't get a cell phone until I was 23 years old when I got that. And I'm like, wow, 12 years old, cell phone. So that's why things changed. But, all we did back then was we made phone calls in the morning, and then we'd go to work and we hoped that everybody showed up. And you'd work all day, didn't get bothered, didn't get interrupted. You get a whole lot of stuff done. And then you come home and you make your phone calls again that night, and you'd work through your schedules. And then, it was all landlines. I had a voice pager, and then came along the digital pager, which most people would just send a phone number, and then you'd had to run down to the gas station, get on the payphone, and then call whoever it was. And you better hope that they were meant business, because that's a lot to go through to go down there. And then it became car phones, which they were mounted in a car. You couldn't carry it around. And then then there was fax machines, which were rolls. They didn't just have paper; they had a roll on there, and they were hard to read. And it was like you couldn't really send anything except for whatever you scanned in. So that was different. And then we went to, one thing I passed over was my dad had it looked like a CB radio in his truck, but it was a party line. So you could hit some buttons on it, dial some buttons, and they had to have this whole unit in order to be able to do that. But from what I remember with him, and I don't know if I wish he still had that thing, because I'd like to put it here in the podcast room, but he said he could hear other people's conversations. So my good friend Alan Schmidt, Senior, he could hear his conversations with his dad and other people, and it was kind of neat, but it was a way of communicating with people. And then, we went to Nextel, two-way communication. So it was push to talk. You'd push the button, it would notify somebody, and it worked like a walkie-talkie. When I was in Columbus at Master Fair, we didn't really have, I think Jared had a cell phone, but we had two-way radios, and we had like 10 of them, and they went all the way across the farm. I think there was a ton of acreage up there that we were crossing. I know that we were, but we would be on the other side of town and it would still work. So, wasn't a whole lot of cell phones, wasn't all that stuff. And then came the cell phone. So now everything we do is in the vehicle. Everything we do is on a job site. We're texting, no home phones. We're emailing from your phone, from your cell phone. And then you have text, you have Facebook, you have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all that stuff. And mind you, I want to go back and remind you that the car phones and the first phones that we had were by the minute. So when you made a phone call, it got charged by the minute, and it was stupid expensive. And then you had to sit in a production meeting and have my dad go down and line item read every phone number that you were on, and he'd look at the minutes. And if you're on the phone for more than 2 minutes, you knew it wasn't just business. So you were going to get in trouble. And he probably wanted a reimbursement or something. I don't know. We used to have to do the same thing at school because everybody was long distance phone calling, so we had to charge by the phone call on those things. It's because it was all long distance. So then we talk about. I think our cell phones are the biggest game changer in life. My wife is all over me right now because we are super busy. So Shannon's like, you don't ever put your phone down. You don't take a break from it. And I'm legitimately making deals. We're getting people to job sites. We're getting people here. We're talking to people here. I'm going and going and going and going. And I just feel like we're under this crunch right now as we lead up to the end of the year, as we're trying to get some of these houses wrapped up. And we're just trying, and we've got people who have screwed some things up for us that we're trying to straighten out. So the pressure's on, to fix mistakes that people who just didn't do things. So it's great, but it's also a crutch, and it'll bring you down if not used properly. So so going back to, let's look at some technology. So I think about our cost sheet that we use, and I've got an Excel spreadsheet that is in our computer. I've revamped it, but it was originated on a piece of paper, and it was on a legal size paper. And I think my dad got it from the Home Builders Association. I think maybe one of his friends gave it to him. I can't remember. But he used to handwrite all the cost numbers in there. He had really good handwriting and still does. And he could write all the numbers in there and read it and go down through it and fill everything in. And then he could fill in the deltas on each one of them as he got the bills. And now ours is all in the computer. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and we've got different formulas in there. And I've got just hundreds and hundreds of items in there. So that's probably a big difference to handwritten. We used to have typewriters. My mom would typewrite she would put all the contracts into a typewriter and type them. I remember when I used to get a contract from a realtor, if it was typewritten, I knew that the realtor had been in business and knew what the hell they were doing. And if it was chicken scratched on there and had a bunch of stuff written in there, then they were probably not as seasoned as I've seen in the past. So that was a big deal for typewriters. Again, we talk about the fax line and the copier. That wasn't something that we always had. I think that, I always think about this. I don't know why I relate the copier to a microwave, but my grandparents got a microwave. They were older, but they always seemed to have, they had cable before we ever did out in the country. They had a microwave before we ever did. And this thing was the size of a refrigerator. And, but it was the same as a copier, when we got a copier, it was like, wow, this is unbelievable. You can make pictures of other things you done written. So that was pretty cool. And now we have computers, and I remember reading through the minutes, on our, I don't know what year anniversary that was of the Home Builders Association. And it was, the board minutes were when they decided to buy a computer. And I think they voted to pay like $25,000 for this thing. And it was a single computer. In our office, only had one computer in it, and had a printer that was like that, went back and forth, and I could do that for you a couple more times if you want, call me. But everything was just one deal, took forever. Great big printer. I remember that printer was huge. And then when we were in school, and back then, if you remember, it was that green and white paper, and you could get it to print sideways so you could make really long letters about it. So yeah, things changed with that single computer. But I remember then we got multiple computers, and then we had Microsoft Office, and you have to buy a disk, and it was illegal for you to download all that information off that disk and then take the disk and hand it to your buddy. And then they could take it and put it on their computer. Not that we ever did that. Anybody that's listening from the law, but so that was a big change. When things came into the computer world, and then you started learning to put more and more things on the computer, storage on the computer, and now you could pull up a previous contract, make a few adjustments to it, and then print it off instead of going back and retyping a whole new contract every single time on a typewriter. These people who type really fast are amazing. And it probably goes back to something like that. But then I also remember, when I was like, hey, you know what? We need a website. So me and my mom met with, it was Alan and Kathy Schroeder's son-in-law. He's going to kill me if he's listening to this, because I don't remember his name off the top of my head because I'm nuts. But and he was like, hey, I'll do it for you. And so we started putting some things together, and we built a website, and it might have been like one page. And back then we were building neighborhood houses. So we had some pictures of some houses on there. When I first graduated college, we had an email address, but it was nothing and there was the internet was just starting to come out, but it was not like you could see, we wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on it. So it just, that's how old or young I am. I don't know which way you want to look at it, but those are the big differences in the technology. So then I think about the different equipment that we use, like the equipment out in the field. We used to dig all the basements with a front engine loader, and that doesn't sound like a big deal, but for all you young whippersnappers out there, using a front engine loader is a lot different than using a rear engine loader, because you have to be careful how close you get to things with it, and what kind of damage you can do with it. And the other thing is that those things had 97 levers and 14 pedals on it, and you had to be a bad son of a gun to be able to run that thing, because you had to be quick and you had to be, just whipping around all the time and having your hands on 30 different levers and backward and forward and really know what you're doing to get that hole within an inch. With those things, it's crazy. And then it came the rear engine loader, which was really cool, and hydrostatic, and got rid of chain drives, and that was a big change. The other thing is we used to dig everything with a rubber tire backhoe, and everybody used to see these things running around. I just saw one on a lot today when I was walking a lot, really old one. But that was all we ever used. Now everything we do is a track hoe and a skid steer. And I look around on job sites, and some of these big commercial sites have 30 different track hoes sitting around there. Make them in all kinds of sizes. They make them in all kinds of different utilities, zero radiuses. They use them with blades on them. They have all kinds of different size buckets for them. It's amazing what happens. And then these skid steers are the smaller, compact track loaders. And we use those because they're small. You can haul them with a truck for the most part, and they'll do just about whatever you want. As far as grading and doing different things. So that's a big change. That track hoe is a big change. And I remember when I was working on a farm up in Columbus when I was in school, and we were clearing a fence line, and we had to clear it. I think probably for the most part, we threw diesel fuel and something else on it and tried to kill it. And if that didn't work, then we lit it on fire. But then, nowadays we'd go along there with a track hoe, and we'd sit in there and we'd just rake it back, pull it all up, and get rid of it. And so you're always looking for a machine to replace whatever manual labor we get stuck doing. But so that's a big change. So on concrete trucks, the rear discharge concrete truck was the biggest pain in the ass you've ever seen in your entire life. Because the chute on the back of it was, you had to manually move it. The truck had to get in a position where it had to be right on it, and you had to back all the way around there, and these drivers would just struggle with every single thing. Once you got off the road, it was really difficult. And so front discharge trucks were not as common. Now, the only time you see a rear discharge is in a commercial outfit, and I don't even know why they do that anymore. Because everything you do is a front discharge. Guys don't even have to get out of the truck. They can maneuver the chute. It's all on hydraulics. They maneuver the chute. They can sit in there. And it eliminates, if these guys, some of these drivers are so good that it eliminates the need for another man down on the ground when you're getting concrete down, because they can sit there and just kick it back and forth and lay that concrete in there exactly where you need it. It's kind of cool, really. So that was a really big change in the concrete world. The other thing is that we never, ever used a concrete pump. We always just had the concrete come out. And then if it was raining, it was wet, there was some bad conditions, all the concrete trucks had cables on them. And one would pull the other, and then you call a tow truck, and then you had to have a dozer or a loader on site to pull them or push them around there. And it was the dumbest thing you've ever seen in your life, because you could have probably saved money at the end of the day, because then we had to clean the street. Everybody got stuck. You had tow bills, and really, I don't even remember pumps being that popular in the early 90s like that. So that's a big change. Now we pump everything. Everything. We used to drive when we would clean out the hole, we had to have a ramp because the loader was driving in and out of there. But then that was also there because we'd pull the concrete truck all the way down in the hole. And that was true up until, 10 years ago. We'd pull the truck down there and we'd pour the whole footer out of the truck in the hole, as long as it was dry. And even before that, back in the day, those guys used to take those rear discharges and they would pour them from the top, and they'd back the wheels up over the edge of the wall, and it's just the most dangerous crap in the world. But oh my gosh, concrete trucks or concrete pumps save the day. And the other thing is gravel slinger trucks. So now we get everything like the pea gravel and the things that are going in the basement. They've got a belt slinging machine. So the gravel, it's got like a wedge bed on it on this big dump truck. And the arm with a conveyor belt on it comes out. The guys, a lot of them are remote control. These guys can back the truck up, drive it forward, maneuver it with a remote control. They don't even need to be in a truck anymore. The ones we use are still a little bit older, but man, this is a savior. When I was younger, we used to pour the foundation, get it all in there, wait for the guys to get the wall stripped, and then as we're backfilling the basement, they're putting gravel around the outside. He'd get dirt pushed up against there, and then we would dump pea gravel up over the edge of the wall, all around the whole basement. And then me, I'd have to go down there with a wheelbarrow and shovel and 2x10s and create paths all over the basement and shovel this shit everywhere. And it was miserable and absolutely miserable. So the guy who invented the slinger is just a brilliant genius. And he was probably one of those clowns like me that had to be down there in the basement shoveling that stuff and slinging it all over the place with rakes and flat shovels and wheelbarrows. And I'm still angry about it, but oh man, it was so tough. That was a tough job. The other thing, that we did up in Columbus a couple times is we get the gravel delivered on a concrete truck. So, the drum would spin out the gravel and we could get it in a couple tough places that we needed. And that would take forever because those trucks don't hold a lot. But it was a lot easier than shoveling that stuff all over the place. If we had any brains, we would have just taken it and dumped the gravel down there and done it on the footer, and got it in there before the wall. But I don't know what we were thinking. So you live and learn. You know, your manufacturer, a lot of this stuff that we do is trial and error. I was talking to one of our homeowners the other day who's an engineer, and he works for some sort of affiliate to GE now, but he worked for Case International, and he said that their whole method of trial was, man, you develop the part, you go out there and put it on a machine, and you go out there and run it and see if it works. Now, you can't do that with an airplane, but you can do it with a combine, and if the place burns down, you're out in the middle of the field, nobody gets hurt. But I think it's the same way. For every manufacturer, there's trial and error, and you have to learn these things. And you know, the more headache that you have, the more pain that you have, the more urgency that somebody has to develop a better way to do it. And so I think that that's something of the stuff that happens with us quite a bit. I used to get so frustrated with my dad because he's always trying to reinvent the wheel. And I'm like, why? This worked. Why are we trying to do it a different way? I'm like, well, he's been doing it so long. He knows that there's ways to try and do different things all the time. Still frustrates me though. It doesn't make it any better. Anyway, so let's talk about, I want to make sure I harp on that a little bit more to make sure everybody knows how hard I had to work when I was younger about that gravel. Construction driveways. We never put in construction driveways. I mean, it was because it was about cost effectiveness, you know, and if people would have to park out on the street. If you're building a neighborhood, people can walk from the street up to the house. Now we have to do it because we have a soil and water conservation district. Every county that we go to, they have police inspectors that come out and inspect the streets and inspect the silt fence, which is another topic that I have on here is silt fence. We never used silt fence back in the day. Now we have to. Which is all soil erosion control. And it's a part of the EPA, part of the tree huggers that make sure that the soil doesn't make it down into the curb, which makes it into the storm sewer, which could eventually make it down into a creek that has a fish in it that can't taste dirt and it dies, and then the rest of the world falls apart. So those are really, really important things to make sure that the soil stays on site. But it's the same thing with the construction driveway. So we put them in now because we need a safe, clean place for people to pull up there and park. Nobody needs to get into mud, and everybody in this company needs to hear that. Nobody needs to get into mud. Keeps your subfloor clean, keeps the streets clean, keeps your vehicles clean, just makes common sense. So you want to make sure you get that construction driveway in there below grade. So when you go to pour concrete, you're just kind of topping it off, scratching the surface, and pouring concrete over top of it. So that's something that we never, ever did. Portalets, never. We never had a restroom on a job, and it led to some horrible results. From, you know, people using the restroom inside the house, number one, or number two. It was just I want to go down through these stories and tell you these stories, but I don't want people to look back and go, wow, you know, these people were horrible builders. But I remember the worst job in the world was go through the paint buckets and pull the tops of them off to see which one had paint, which one didn't, if you know what I mean. And the one that didn't have paint in it, it was like somebody come up and punching you in the face. It was so disgusting, so nasty. So that was one of the horrible jobs, again, that I had to do when I was younger, leading up to where I am now. And I am so thankful that I'm here now. I'm still getting shit on. And so the portalets were never around. You always had to jump in a truck, run down to the gas station. So you hope that if you had to go down to the gas station, use the bathroom, maybe you make a few phone calls while you was down there. That's what the whole deal was. Talked to a guy the other day, and he said, I knew exactly which, when he was working in a neighborhood, I knew exactly which payphone he was going to go to because it had a longer cord on it, and he could just pull his truck right up to it, stay in the truck, make the phone calls, and keep a roll of quarters in there and just keep making phone calls while you was in your truck. You don't have to stand outside in the weather. Crazy things. Dumpsters, Never had dumpsters on the job. We burnt everything. I mean, when I was a little kid, I had lighters in my pocket when I was 6th, 7th grade, you know, I mean, and we'd take plumber's glue out there and I'd burn everything. I mean, we had all these houses that had cedar shingles on them and cedar siding on them, and everything got burnt. And that wasn't always a good thing, because I could set the world on fire out there and it would be under a great big tree that everybody was trying to save. And I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to lose my job back then because I killed a tree. But dumpsters, man, we took brick, we took everything that couldn't cause termites, everything that couldn't get burnt, would go in porches, would go in places where you could use it for solid fill. And then, you know, we would burn everything else. And that's, dumpsters are a big deal now, man. We need them. And now we go the step further with dumpsters, is that we have dumpster crushers. So we use the dumpster, and then we have another guy come along with this big roller and push it down and smash it if we don't have a machine on site, just to get more use out of our dumpster. It's crazy. So the other thing, you know, big thing that changed there, back in, I guess it was early mid 90s, was house wrap. We never really used house wrap, and until, you know, I think it got to the point where, you know, a lot of the things, I've said this before, and you guys have heard me say this on here, a lot of the code changes that happen in our book is because of manufacturers pushing their product. Well, hey, this one is probably a decent change that we made, because I really like air infiltration barriers on the outside of the house. It's a weather barrier. It's an air infiltration barrier. It lets air move back and forth, lets moisture out, but doesn't let moisture in. Some of the coolest science you've ever seen. Tyvek was the leader in this whole thing. DuPont Tyvek, which is why I say this. So one of the things that happened was the city of Mason was randomly making us put on tar paper on all the outside of the house and then lay brick over top of it. Well, then lo and behold, if anybody's that old to remember this, but there was a builder who just got destroyed because all the houses started getting mold on them. And it was air entrapment inside there. The tar paper doesn't let the air move and breathe, and it was so horrible. So then we was like, okay, well, the code had a wording in there that said you had to have a 1-inch airspace in between the framed wall and the back of the brick. It wasn't 1 1/4 inches, and it wasn't 7 or 3/4 of an inch. It was 1 inch, no nominal. So that was difficult. And, you know, lo and behold, you have a difficult homeowner who wanted to sue the builder. They hired a forensic architect, and that's how they realized that this code needed to be changed. So the code got changed to, if you have house wrap, you don't need the 1-inch air barrier. But if you do not have house wrap, you need to have a nominal 1-inch air barrier. Okay, now it goes from there to, hey, this house wrap thing isn't a bad idea. So then we go from paper house wrap like Tyvek to, we use a liquid applied air barrier called EnviroDry. And almost every single house that you see being built across America today has an air barrier, has an air infiltration barrier on the outside of it. So that was a big thing. That was a really big difference. And that was something that we had to go to classes to learn. Believe it or not, we had to have our window installer go to the class. We had to have our framers go to the class. We had to have roofers. We had to have all kind of people go to these classes and learn to understand more about this in order to improve things as they move forward. So that's my story about that. But the other thing that we changed with that is the brick flashing at the bottom of the foundation, or at the top of the foundation at the bottom of the frame wall. So this is like an 18-inch piece of tape, essentially, that has a sticky back to it, and it covers up the joint between the plywood, covers up the band joints, covers up the top plate joint, and then curves down and like an L and covers over. And when you're putting brick on, covers over top of the foundation. This allows all the water that runs down the back of the brick and the inside of there, and then hits down there and then runs out through the weep holes if there is any. Fantastic move. I love this. I think it's so great, because when I first got home here, and for years and years and years before my time, all we did was we had a roll of plastic, and as the framers were framing the wall before they put the sheeting on it, they would run this plastic down in no certain order, and they would nail it onto to the stick frame, and then they would put the plywood over top of it. Then they would take a nail and pin it up there so we didn't get it caught underneath the wall. And then they tipped the wall up, and then the plastic would eventually drape down over top of the foundation, eventually. So this was one of our punch out items. You know, you had to go through and cut all the plastic off because there'd be big chunks of it hanging out. There'd be some small chunks of it hanging out, but you wanted it to be consistent. So you had to go around, take a pocket knife and cut it all off. This is not a good way to flash. So what I started doing, I realized that it wasn't a good way to flash. So I started going down and buying a big thing of roofing tar and a great big old rubber glove. And I'd take it and smear it in between there all the way around the whole house. And then I would take that plastic and lay it down over top of it, just trying to make sure that it sealed through there. Like, this is miserable. Because one, I wasn't getting paid for it. Two, I'm not sure if it was the right way to do it. But then we come along with this flash and seal like this. Best thing ever. Really, really good improvements that we made through the years. Never used to do that for many, many years. Anyway, that was a big deal. And we hire a separate company for that now, which is crazy. Another thing I was thinking about was, now we spray all the paint. Spray the walls, back roll them. We spray all the woodwork, and it gives a very consistent, smooth finish. Now, back in the day, if a painter was really, really good, when you brushed the paint on there, you could make it look slick. You could make it look like it was sprayed on there. You didn't have to have brush marks in it. But then, as time goes on, like everything, like it is today, the labor and the skilled labor to do all of these things sucks. So you have to find other methods to be able to do this in order to make up for the lack of skill in a lot of different areas. And I'm not being a jerk. I'm telling you, this is the truth. And manufacturers know this, and this is what's going on. So not only did we switch from brush to sprays, we also switched from an oil-based paint to a water-based paint for the most part, which makes it nice because you can clean all your brushes out, clean all your rollers out with water. Whereas the oil, you used to have turpentine and all that stuff, paint thinner in order to clean everything out. And that was a step up from lead-based paint, which is what everybody has to sign contracts for and say that there's no lead-based paint in their house. Very dangerous stuff. But that was a big changer. That was a difficult change for me because I didn't like it. My uncle and my cousin were our painters for years and years and years, and they were really good. And I always liked them painting with brushes. And then you switch to these new guys who spray everything different. OSHA was something else that I was looking at. OSHA's been around forever, but OSHA is there's a place for it. Certainly, safety is key for everything that we do. We learned that in wood shop class when we were in the 8th grade. But it's something that has progressed through the years, and people are completely aware of it. But the other thing, that OSHA is not just a job site limiter. OSHA is also improving the materials that we use. For instance, with firefighters, they're not using wood ladders anymore. They're using some other type of material, if it's aluminum or if it's fiberglass or whatever it is. And the same thing with us. We're using aluminum or fiberglass ladders. We're using certain kind of extension cords. We use certain kind of fall protection. All of these things are made up because of the rules from OSHA. So that's been an improvement. More of a pain in the ass, but more of an improvement through the years. Another thing I was thinking about was windows. You went from these old rope pulled windows back in the old houses, single pane glass. They were just basically a hole in the wall with a sealer over top of them. And then we went to there was a time period there where we had aluminum windows, all aluminum windows. So in the wintertime, when it got really cold, the whole window just frosted up, had an inch of frost on the whole inside of it and the outside of it. Was crazy. Not a good solution. And then we went to vinyl windows, aluminum clad windows, which is what we still use today. Fiberglass windows, we use some of those today. So windows, and then you think about the glass in the windows, which is such a huge deal. Because it's got gas in between the glass. It's got argon gas. It's got all kinds of different things that protect your furniture and your carpet in the glass to protect UV lights and all the sunlight. And it's just amazing the different changes that have been made there, but not just the way that it insulates and handles the light coming through it, but the performance of them, raising them up and down, not getting twisted and binded within a brick to where the window doesn't open and close properly. All those things have changed quite a bit through the years. True divided light, simulated divided light, grids between the glass to no grids at all. Those are some big changes that we made. I mean, I remember grids used to be a big deal. Now it's like, nope, you don't need grids in there anymore. People don't they like to see out of their windows without any obstructions. Something I was thinking about too was gutters. Gutters used to be made off site, and these guys would, if they had a long run, they'd have to get them made somewhere at Marsh or at a hardware store. And then they'd put them on their truck, on their ladder racks, and they'd take a 50, 60-foot gutter down the road. And you could hear that thing just banging off the street on both ends of it all the way to the job site. Just pretty funny stuff. And if it made it all the way to the job site, that was pretty amazing. But that's why we call it continuous gutters now, is because, they used to be made like that, and then you'd have to piece them all together and seal them up. Now they're all made. There's a machine on a trailer or in a truck, and it's all made on site, no matter what length it is. It's all made on site, and they're continuous, seamless gutters. Pretty crazy. The big thing for plumbing fixtures, obviously there's been some improvements in the colors of them, in the shapes of them, but the big difference there, as people complain about all the time, is the gallons per minute on the toilets and on the fixtures. And there's also a pressure regulator, and the plumbing fixtures can only operate at a certain pressure, and I think it's up to 70 something. And so we have to have a pressure regulating valve down on the main. So when you go to take a shower and the pressure is not great, everybody thinks, oh, this sucks. You suck as a builder. Well, it's not my fault. These are changes that have been made to the code. For light fixtures, it's the LED lights. Big changes there, from light bulbs to the LEDs. And I think that's a good change because it's super energy efficient. The heat's not in them anymore. With these can lights, we always used to have thermostat up in the can lights. We'd cover the can light with insulation. Then you put this super hot spotlight bulb up in there. And then every once in a while, you'd be walking through the house if the light stayed on so long, and the can light would shut itself off because it got too hot. Not good. So now we have LED lights, light bulbs, and all of that stuff is even better. And even more so now, we're not using the full depth cans anymore. We're using face mounted can lights. We call them disc lights. Pretty cool. So insulation, that's another thing I was thinking about, because I can remember, I don't know what year it was, but I walked into the house. We used to put open-faced insulation. So when you'd walk in, you'd see it was pink, and there was no paper on it, no nothing. And the guys would put all the insulation in the wall, and then they would come back and they would wrap 4 mil plastic all over the wall. So you put the insulation on, and you put a clear plastic over top of it, and then it would. I get it. It was a vapor barrier, is what they were looking for there. But if it rained outside and you had that house under insulation and not all the utilities were on inside yet, you'd see the moisture just running down the inside of that plastic, and it was just a horrible thing. So I remember going back and talking to my dad, and I'm like, we got to do something different with this. We switched to a paperback, a craft back insulation. It held up better on the wall, and it didn't hold that moisture in there. And again, this is that air infiltration barrier on the back of that insulation. That paperback, craft back is what it's called. So that was a big change for us. Then we go to spray foam, and then we have a higher concentration on the envelope in the ceiling of the house, and then sealing, like not sealing roof, but sealing up the house, all the joints, and the R values. Those are big changes because we're worried about energy conservation, and insulation in the wall cavity is a big deal. And it's really not in the wall cavity. It's about the temperature that's getting beat down on the wall on the outside. And so we're protecting against that stuff better, and we're creating that air infiltration barrier. You think about your wall cavity, and we've talked about this on here before, but if you have a brick wall, you have your air space between that brick wall, you have your air vapor barrier, and then you have the framed wall, you have your insulation, then you have your drywall or your craft back, and then you have your drywall, and then you have your paint. And all of those things take into account the efficiency of that wall, the air flow back and forth. The wall, even the paint is considered a vapor barrier on that wall. So all of those things have adjusted and changed through the years for all of these things. So I had some notes on here too, like the employees and hiring and marketing. All of those things have changed so much through the years, and how we hire. I mean, you used to put an ad in the paper. And now, I don't know a lot of people that read the paper anymore. Now we have Indeed, and we have a bunch of online things on how we attract people to our business. So, anyway, I hope you guys, I mean, these are probably things that but I was just thinking about this the other day, and I thought, well, what gooder chance do I get than to talk about it on a podcast. The big difference is, and I'm sure I wish that somebody would just type something up and send it to me, and I'd love to continue talking about this, because I'm sure that there's a million different ways that people do things differently now than what we are. Hopefully they've been improvements to materials, the things that we use. Some of them have been disimprovements because they've been manufacturer driven. But, I think for the most part, we've made some positive changes in the way we do things, and they make sense to do things. So, thank you everybody again for tuning in to the WB Download. We are rolling into our 4th year of this podcast, and it's been consistent. We've never missed one, knock on wood. And hopefully we continue to keep it going all the time. I'm really looking forward to next month. The release will be on my 51st birthday with my good friend Mike O'Rourke from O'Rourke Wrecking. So I'm looking forward to that. But thank you again, everybody, for always tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the WB Download and on your favorite podcast service, and check us out on YouTube. With all of these houses that we have finishing up here lately, it'll be a good idea to check us out on our social media to see all the videos and the pictures and the things that Leanne's going to be putting on there, because it's exciting stuff, and we're super proud, and I know our customers are proud of what we're putting out there. Well, most of our customers are proud of what we're putting out there. So fun stuff. If you want to be a part of the conversation, email me at wbdownload@wielandbuilders.com, WIE@wielandbuilders.com. And like I said, check us out. Check us out on our webpage at wielandbuilders.com. And hey, tune in next week as we get into it with Mike O'Rourke, and then we will wrap up the year with a recap of all the guests that we've had on the show, rolling into Christmas there. So thank you, everybody. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And as always, thanks for tuning in. I'm Jeff Wieland here on the WB Download.